where his lab group pioneered studies using photographs of individual humpback and finback whales to establish population characteristics. And this approach is used broadly now for most whale populations. He later became president of the College of the Atlantic. I first met Steve a few years ago. We were both working on a project associated with the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis. It was a working group to develop an ocean health index using a number of different measures that were all integrated together for one index. So today, Steve works with Conservation International, and he's the managing director of the International Ocean Health Index. So welcome, Steve.
Oh, I gotta turn this on. Thanks, Kendra. Hi, everybody. If any of you got your little thing signed and sneaked out, you're a rat. But anyway, glad you're all here. And I want to start off by thanking Kendra and Jackie and all the members of the Marine Studies Department of USF and all the people who helped put this together. And also the previous speakers. I've learned a lot from all three of you. And I think unwittingly you've done a brilliant job of teeing it up for this presentation. So I want to start with a film to put us in the mood and then talk a little about what Ken said I would talk about. You got no sound.
How do we measure the value of the ocean? How well do we manage our relationship with the world's greatest resource? What is our plan if its supply should run out? How quickly could the decimation of an ecosystem or the extinction of one species destroy an industry, a country, a family? Which cities will be underwater in our lifetime? Where will their citizens go? How can a better understanding of the ocean help shape the future of life on our planet? How many mouths could we feed? How many jobs could we save? How much energy could we harness? How much medicine could we harvest? How much is a beach worth? How much is plastic worth? How much is our health worth? How much are the oceans worth?
Excellent. Did it. I'm not going to talk about the actual monetary value very much, but I am going to talk about the how much part. And we're going to talk about what we've learned over the past 5 years of trying to think about this question of ocean health. Aaron did a terrific job of talking about some aspects of dolphin health and evaluation. But health is a pretty tricky subject, and I don't know how many of us in the audience would consider ourselves healthy and how we would actually go about doing that. What does health mean, and can you actually apply the concept to an ecosystem, or worse yet, an ocean or more? So what we know is that we've seen, even in our lifetimes, lots of change, and there was plenty before that, and lots is still coming, but we've not had any overall way to think about those things together. We've looked at them pretty separately and in great depth sometimes, and we've seen some of the results of that intense thought in some of the presentations today and yesterday. But there's good news too, and I think that you'd agree that there are very few people or companies or any other entities in the world that really seek to do harm. Every once in a while there is, but not very often, and most of them would like to have a healthy ocean if they knew how to make that happen. But the question is, well, what is a healthy ocean? What would it look like? And there's been a lot of controversy over the years about whether you could apply the term health to anything other than an individual, to a group of individuals, populations maybe. What about groups of different individuals, habitats and oceans? And Dan Simberloff, who many of you know and highly respected, a great guy, in 1998 said, it can't be done, it's not a workable goal. We took a different approach to it. I want to tell you just a little history of how this project came to be. About 2008 was the starting point, and there are two routes of it, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. We've all been aware of all of the ills that the ocean suffers, and I was pretty upset about it because I kept noticing in the different global conventions starting in Stockholm and Rio Plus 20 and all the ones in between, the things were sort of mentioned each time and dragged along like a load of suitcases. It kept getting longer and bumping along, but nothing really substantial at a broad level seemed to be happening to stop those things, and it made me kind of angry, really. So in 2008, on the East Coast, Conservation International's Ocean Health Council had a meeting, and Bo Wrigley, who was head of it, and it still is, and his wife Heather were talking with Greg Stone, who was my student at College of the Atlantic, and my wife Susan's student. Now he's my boss, but oh well. Anyway, and they said Greg had been trying to figure out something interesting, which was thinking about the hockey stick metaphor for climate. What was it, like the Industrial Revolution that made carbon dioxide concentrations increase so quickly, what was it that may have made marine biological exploration take off? And he thought about all the things and finally concluded that it may have been scuba gear and the ability to go under and look at things more closely. And so the question in this Ocean Health Council meeting was, somebody must have measured the health of the ocean or something. Isn't there some thermometer or something? And they said no, and the idea was, then we better do that. So it was that simple. Three people and a couple others who didn't know if it had been done, could be done, but thought it should be done. And that's where we started on the East Coast with the New England Aquarium, National Geographic, and the Oak Foundation, a little funding. And we did a feasibility study in 2009, and I put together a steering committee. And in 2008, Ben Halpern had just published led with a team, that wonderful paper on ecological impacts to the ocean, a global assessment. And so we got him on the steering committee and others. And we began to meet and to do what we thought could be an index. And it was based on all of those pressures, and we were going to set goals for reduction and look at the rate of reduction over time and consider whether those rates were quick enough for certain criteria we'd set up. So it was pressure-based. And one of the meetings, people said, oh, that's nice, yes, all of these pressures. What about the people? And we said, okay, we'll do track 2. We'll talk about people. Well, at the same time, again, starting in 2008, but on the West Coast, the Packard Foundation had funded the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis to do a working group to look at ocean health within the context of coastal zone planning. how would that inform planning? So that group found out about it and wiggled my way into it. Kendra was on it. And for a year or year and a half, we worked on a whole different model, which was based on people, which was sort of heretical, really, in some of the conservation world, but more accepted in others. And in 2010, Ben and I said, hey, we can't have two indices. Let's just merge them and try and do the same thing. And so that's what happened. And in 2012, the paper was published, and it had a lot of people working on it. And you notice that the title wasn't Ocean Health Index. That the reviewers didn't like that. They wanted something that separated ocean and benefits, even though we put them all together. And I want to give a shout out to Kendra, right there, for her contributions to this, to Ben Halp, who is the lead scientist to the project, and I'm quite certain without him there wouldn't be an Ocean Health Index. So the guiding principles that we established were that, number one, ocean benefits people to thrive. Well, that's a no-brainer. You can't argue that. That optimal benefits require sustainable use. Well, that's true, but it set some people off because it implied that if you didn't use the ocean, it wasn't healthy. And did we want to actually use the whole thing? We knew there were pressures and conflicts among uses everywhere. And what we thought was if we could have some sort of a method that would, in a transparent and quantitative way, evaluate all of these things and the costs and the benefits and the trade-offs and so forth, and also measure sustainability, that we'd be able to benefit everybody. So that's how this project came to be. And so it's been about 5 years in the making from the very beginning. And this is the definition that the working group came up with. And it's well worth taking a moment to, tattoo it on yourself. Because what it does is put people and ocean together, and it posits that the health of the ocean is dependent on the flow of benefits to people, but done in a sustainable way so that it's continuous or can be continued into the indefinite future. So, given all that, what is a healthy ocean? And if you have a bunch of different places with and without people and our paraphernalia, which area is healthier, and how would you go about deciding that? That's where things get tough. Because originally, you might have thought, well, an ocean that didn't show any of the footmarks of people, footprints of any of our activities would be wonderful. And in fact, the Census of Marine Life, in its very earliest meetings, Jesse Ausable had the goal of putting the ocean back into its pristine condition, and that excited a lot of us. It turns out to be not very practical because people really are everywhere, and if we're not, our footprints are. And so the system we posit is not a marine system here and a people system here, but one big system in which we're all together. And it's part of our lives in which we're part of its life. And this is the original, the map from Ben's 2008 study. And you see the very low impact is located in the Antarctic and some in the Arctic, which is liable to change pretty quickly, with lots of hot zones over here in Asia, India, and some elsewhere, Europe, what you might expect. So we're everywhere. So in the East, we tried a couple of things that are pretty interesting to assess ocean health. The first one is related to Aaron's work. It's like Ask the Animals. if we knew how to speak to them or they to us, they'd tell us what it's like out there, and they integrate everything. We wouldn't have to go to all this trouble if we knew how to get the answers from them. So we tried to set up a sentinel species group. This particular group is for the East Coast: cod, bluefin tuna, humpback whale, right whale. We've got a petrel, some herring, blue mussels, lobster, all of which are pretty well known, well studied, all that kind of thing. And the question for them was, tell us how you're doing population-wise through your body condition, your reproductivity, anything that we could assess over time. And we could do all that. We could have done all that. The problem was reference points, like how many should there be? And that was insurmountable. And maybe somebody here will figure out how to make that work, but we couldn't. So we dropped that layer, we dropped that approach and dropped that data layer from the Ocean Health Index. The other one was you could do this pressure-based approach that we talked about, but it didn't include people. And another thing it didn't include was that, generally speaking, for every pressure, there's somebody is benefiting. It's not equal, maybe, but including the people also includes studying the benefits that the ocean provides. Discarding trash isn't a benefit, but somebody is probably saving money and effort by doing it. And the third is this human ocean people nature coupled system. And so that's like a good idea, but how do you do it? So the first thing we were figuring out is, well, like, where should we measure? What should we do? And the was absolutely, it should be global, do it at a global level. And then there's the question of the scale of the study areas. And as you know, there are quite a bunch of them out there. There's large marine ecosystems, there's eco-bioregions, there's other things, there are political boundaries. And we decided to go with EEZs, the exclusive economic zones, because those are pretty well studied and they're under the jurisdiction of a particular country. And so it would give some advantages. So that's the area that we started off studying in the 2012 analysis and 2013. It's 40% of the world ocean only, the other 60 being international waters, but it's the 40% from which people get most benefits and contribute most impact. It seemed like a reasonable place to start, and there's more data there. So the question then, okay, global EEZs, what are we going to study? What benefits we're talking about? Well, clearly food is one of them. Everybody's interested in that aspect of it. Seafood, as you can see, is terribly important in terms of protein to lots of us, but especially to people in parts of the world who don't have so much money in food. 4 billion people get about 15% or more of their protein from seafood. And what's more, artisanal fishers or harvesters get a lot of their protein that they could never buy from seafood. And finally, of course, the burgeoning mariculture industry, which is just past 50% of all seafood in terms of production. That's pretty interesting. So that one we knew had to go in. Prosperity, the global seafood industries are responsible for about $6 trillion a year of income, about 10% of global economic activity, and then lots of people are employed. The exact numbers aren't known, but it's something like $250 million in fishing alone and another 100 million in tourism and God knows what. And all of that revenue is keeping a lot of seaside communities in business, including this one. And then tourism, of course, is probably the fastest growing of any of the global industries. And there's something like 500 million people who come to coastal areas and contribute some kind of money. Biodiversity, most people are conscious of it. They don't know quite what it does, but it obviously underlies much of the ocean benefits, and the challenges to species and the risks of extinction are problematic, not just for present benefits, but for future benefits too, possible future benefits, bioprospecting and other things. People talked about coastal protection, which of course after various hurricanes and Sandy and everything else is pretty important. Where they are present, the coastal habitats, mangroves particularly, but also salt marshes, seagrasses, coral reefs, sea ice where it's present, really prevent a lot of damage from storm flooding, erosion, and so forth. And those, as you know, are tremendously expensive events. And of course, clean water. It's not an ecosystem service, really. It's not in itself a benefit, but it sure makes a lot of the other benefits possible. And most everybody agrees that the water should be clean and that all the things we've talked about in the past day and a half, mercury and oil and red tides and dead zones and so forth and so on, they don't belong in the ocean if you could possibly get rid of them. Everybody knows that. So the last thing that we put in was an intangible, but it's really important, and it has, I think, a lot to do with people's lives. Being by the ocean, or even having awareness that ocean habitats and ocean creatures exist, such as penguins, which you may never go see, or Antarctica, which you may never go see, or some, Bali High, which you may never go see. They have meaning for people, as well as others that are used culturally, spiritually,